Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This Imam Zia, recording exclusively for the Prophet's Path channel on YouTube. Today, inshallah, I'm going to be talking about something quite sensitive, but nevertheless important to talk about, because we are living in a society where gender relationships and the meeting of the opposite gender occurs quite frequently. So keeping that point in mind, the question is always asked of me that how far can I go in interacting with the opposite gender? And obviously, many of us are going to school, many of us are going to work, many of us, have interaction as doctors, for example, with the opposite gender, as nurses, there's interaction. So to what level can we have this interaction? So the bottom line is, and the easiest way to understand it is, on an as-needed basis. Only how long we need for, and as long as we need to, then that interaction is sufficient and allowed. But other than that, the interaction has to stop, and there is no allowance for any more interaction other than that. We see that the Sahabiyat and the Sahaba, they used to interact on an as-needed basis, but anything more than that they didn't do. So this is basically what we need to understand and keep in mind. For example, a student needs to talk to his teacher, or a student needs to talk to his classmate, or two co-workers need to talk to each other. So to what level should they be talking? When they complete the talk that they needed to talk about, then that is it, and they should not be interacting anymore. It should not go any further than exchanging telephone numbers, then from there text messages, and then getting on each other's Facebook pages, and then after that just basically mushrooming into a love affair. This is what we have to try to avoid. Islam is actually a very practical and preventative religion. It prevents us from falling into problems. And the easiest way to prevent ourselves from falling into these problems is to make sure that we cut ourselves off from falling into something which could lead us to trouble much later. And the easiest way to do that is to pay attention to the advice that is given here. Now, one golden piece of advice that was given to us by the Prophet ﷺ was that no male and female should be alone together in a closed room. Why is this? Because the shaitan basically is the third person in that room. And according to one riwayah, the shaitan actually beautifies the man in the eyes of the woman, and beautifies the woman in the eyes of the man. So even though they may not be very good looking outside, but he beautifies them in the eyes of each other in that situation to lead them into committing sins and to do something which is completely wrong. So the easiest way to prevent ourselves from doing that is to not fall into the type of situation which would allow us to do that. And if you are forced to, for example, have a meeting alone with somebody, the best way to do it is to do it in the presence of a third person. For example, a doctor needs to talk to a patient, a female patient. He should have a nurse standing by on the side, or the door should remain open so that there is no chance of a person falling into this kind of questionable activity. Also, a practical point of view, religiously we are told to avoid ourselves from doing this, but more than religiously, in this lawsuit happy society that we're living in nowadays, any person can make an accusation against somebody else that he or she tried to do something inappropriate to me. And that's going to lead to lawsuits, it's going to lead to problems, it's going to lead to even the destruction of a career if a person is trapped in this kind of a situation. And he may be completely innocent, but because he allowed himself to be, or she allowed herself to be alone in the room with somebody, that person can easily make that accusation. So think smartly and don't fall into the trap of this interaction. Interaction, if needed, should be only on an as-needed basis. Anything more than that could be avoided as much as possible, and the end result of that will be that we will inshallah protect ourselves from falling into sin. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives me and you the tawfiq to understand and practice what has been said and heard. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
نور على مر الزمان تألقا وأضاء للدنيا طريقا مشرقا وهدى من الرحمن يهدينا به للصالحات وللمكارم والتقى.